Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to a virtual session of week 11 of System Analysis and Design. I started my lecture late because of prayer. If you can hear me properly, please raise your hand so that I can continue. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay. So we were talking about user interface design in our face-to-face class. So I'll continue from the slide where I left, but first I will give you an overview of the previous ones, and then you can ask me questions. So we were talking about user interface design. The user interface defines how the systems will interact with the external entities, and the system interface is defined as how system will interact with the others. Shiham, you can't hear? Anyone else facing the same problem? Okay, let me check my microphone again. Okay. Suresh, can you hear me now? Okay. I have checked my microphone again, but there is no problem with it. But I don't know why you are not able to hear it. Here maybe there is some problem with the Blackboard. But okay, let me continue with my lecture. So if during my lecture if you don't hear me, just tell me immediately so that I can do something about it. The navigation mechanism provides the way for users to tell the system what to do. The input defines how the system will be collected, how the input will be collected, and output defines how the information will be presented to the users and to the other systems. Then we talked about GUI. We studied some principles of user interface design, which are about layout, about content awareness, about statics, about user experience, about consistency, and about minimizing user efforts. I told you that the layout is divided in three areas: navigation, status, and work area. And when you are keeping information, you should keep the related information together, and areas should remain consistent in terms of size, shape, placement, and reports which are presenting retrieved data. Then I told you about content awareness, that all the interfaces should show that where you are, where you came from, and where you are going from here. Then the statics, the interfaces should be functional as well as inviting to use, so that users use them and don't feel uncomfortable with that. I give you an example of form which is too difficult to understand and then fill out. Then I told you about user experience, that how it is easy for user, how it is feasible for user to learn the system, learn the program, learn the interfaces, and it should also be consistent. The information, the terminology, and the formats, everything should be consistent. Then I give you a rule of 3 clicks rule, that all the information in your system should not be no more than 3 clicks away. And then I told you about user interface design process, that how it is. This is the overall process. The first step is use scenario development, then structure design, then standard design, then interface design prototyping, and then its evaluation. So I told you about use scenario development. Then I told you about how the structure should be designed. You can design it in different ways. So this, you can define that at how many levels do you require and from which form you'll be placing under which manual. And then you can prototype it using some methods, such as you can draw it on a paper or a storyboard, or you can make an HTML prototype, or you can make a prototype in any language. This is an example of storyboard. So you can develop web pages to tell users that what all information they will be collecting and how the data will be presented. So you can build prototype in the languages as well. These are language prototypes. And then you have designed you have prototyped your interfaces, then you evaluate their interfaces. So you can perform heuristic evaluation, and you compare your design with a checklist, or you ask your team to simulate movement through components and see how the user will be moving, or you make users try out the systems and have interactive evaluation, or you can go for primary usability testing, but it will be expensive and it will be a detailed testing. Now, when you have to design your navigation, then the basic principles of navigation designs are: you assume that the users have not read the manual, they have not attended their training, and they do not have external help to learn the things, learn your system. All controls should be clear and understandable and placed in an intuitive location on the screen. And you should prevent mistakes. You should limit choices. You should not give too many choices. Give only the choices which are possible. If some commands are not available, you should gray them out. Instead of displaying them, you should make them hidden. Or simplify recovery from mistakes. If the user commits some mistake at some time, you should allow users to come back or to go back, instead of just closing the application and making all the users' efforts useless. So use consistent grammar order. Type of navigation controls can be in terms of languages. You can use command language or you can use natural language. The menus generally aim at broad channel menu, but you can consider using hotkeys for menus, different menus, and you can perform direct manipulation. You can use icons to start the program. That are used to shape and size objects, and maybe intuitive for all commands. So you can perform direct manipulation on the navigation control as well. So these are the types of menus which can appear. Or these are quite not visible much, but you may be familiar with the menu bar, drop-down menu, hyperlink menu, then embedded hyperlinks, pop-up menu, which pops up when you click over it, tab menu, toolbar, and image map. These are different forms of menus, and these are the details about it. Although this is not visible, but you can read it. There are relevant sections from your book to understand it. Now, whenever you are displaying messages, that should be clear, concise, and complete. So you should not keep the user confused. Give every information clearly, in a concise way, as short as possible, and you should not miss anything which is necessary. It should be grammatically correct, and it should be free of jargons and abbreviations, unless they are the users. The jargons are some terms which are used in certain languages. For example, being a computer science student, you may be calling operating system as OS, or you may be calling application like mobile application, you may be calling it app, or you may be calling graphical user interface as GUI. So these are the terms which will be known to the person who is from computer science, but will not be known to the person who is from different fields. Like, these may not be clear to a person who is a doctor or a person who is someone else, also who is belonging to different professions. So these are the jargons and abbreviations. So you should avoid, and avoid negative and humor. Type of messages which can be displayed are error messages, confirmation messages, means like, do you really want to do, please confirm. Acknowledgement message, please acknowledge, or delay message, or help message. So there are different forms of messages which can be displayed. Basic principles of input design. The goal is to simplify and easily capture accurate information for the systems. Online processing, you can go for online processing and you can go for batch processing as well. On online processing, you immediately record the transaction in the appropriate database, whereas in case of batch processing, you first collect all the inputs and then enter them into the system at one time in a batch, in the form of a group. Batch processing simplifies data communication in other processes, and master files are not uploaded in real time. So if you are capturing data at the source, you can capture it, so it reduces duplicate work, reduces processing time, decreases cost, and decreases probability of error. Source data automation, if you are doing it, can be done using the following technologies. If you are using barcode reader, like to collect input, to collect data from users, to avoid any errors, or to collect accurate information, you can use barcode readers, or you can use optical character recognition, magnetic strip readers, smart cards, or RFIDs. So these are some of the sources. For example, for shopping, as sometimes on shopping stores you use your ATM card as input. Input your data, and there are some barcode readers and optical characters giving the input. The question is, how can Internet be used for source data automation? So any idea how can be used to use Internet for source data automation? So the answer can vary in different ways. Everybody may be thinking in a different way, but so Munira, you are not getting my lecture. You can't hear me. I don't know why is this problem, because I have tested my microphone and my headphones, and at my side it is working properly. There is no problem when I have tested it. It is the problem with Blackboard, or it is the problem with the connection that you are facing this problem. The problem can be the connection on your side, or it can be on my side as well. But I can hear my voice properly. I have tested my microphone. So if you cannot listen it now, maybe you can listen to the recording later, and maybe it will be better over there. Anyone else facing the same problem besides Munira? Fatima, you are also facing the same problem. Okay, what I can try is I can speak little more loudly so that you can hear me properly. So Internet can be used for source data automation. Like if on some devices, to log into that device, like for example, if I want to use my laptop and I have set my fingerprint as my password, so I'm giving my data input, which is in an automated way. Okay? So this can be used for source data automation. Then you should minimize keystrokes. Never ask for information that can be obtained in other ways. Like you should get the information. You should get the information from users. You should only get the information from users which you cannot get from somewhere else. If you can get the information from some other sources, then you should not ask users to give all the information. The types of inputs, data items, links to fields, it can be text or it can be numbers. You can use selection boxes like check boxes, radio buttons, drop-down list boxes, combo boxes, sliders, etc. So these are the different options to give input. So you should use them carefully. These are the examples, like text box. These are radio buttons. If you have all the buttons, then you have to select only one. So you can make a choice. Like in case of when you get multiple choice questions in exam, you have to select only one as an answer. So this is, you can take only one. So in the radio buttons, you can select only one at a time. Whereas when you are using check boxes, you can take or select multiples at the same time. So these are check boxes. Then this is the on-screen list box, where you can list the items and you can scroll through it as well. The drop-down list box is this one, in which when you click on this button, the drop-down menu gets opened and you can see all over here. Or you can use a slider, by which you can set the input values. So as you slide this, and this value gets changed, and you can set the values in this way. And there are some other controls nowadays as well, like which you can select direct through calendar as well. These are the details about selection boxes which you can use. Then you have to validate your input, whether the user has entered correct input or not. So you can perform completeness check, you can perform format check, you can perform range check, whether it is in the range, where you can perform digital check, you can do consistency check, and you can perform database checks as well. And these are the scenarios in which you have to perform these types of validation. So this one to use, completeness check is used when several fields must be entered before the form can be processed. So if the user has left one input as blank or has skipped one input and you want all inputs to be entered, so you can perform completeness check and tell the user, please enter a valid data for this input. The format check is when fields are numeric or contain coded data. So you can combine different types of validations as well. So and you can use it to validate the input data. So validation of input is equally important. You cannot say that I have given user a form to fill it out and then I'm going to use once it gets filled. So when the user enters the data, you have to validate it whether the user has filled all the required fields and have filled the data in the correct format, because all the data entered through a form will be going into the databases. If you are not performing certain checks and collecting data properly, then this can be a problem as well. So these are the different types of input validations which you have to perform. Then when you talk about output design, there are the basic principles about output design. You should understand the report usage, whether you should use reference or cover to cover, how frequently you should generate the reports, whether you should generate reports in real time or it should be batch reports, and how you will be managing information load, whether you will be giving out all the needed information or you will be giving only the required information and no more. And while presenting the information, you should minimize bias. The types of reports which can be generated are detailed report, summary report, turnaround document, and graphs. The detailed report lists detailed information about all the items requested. And when to use detailed report? When user needs full information about the item. Okay? The summary report lists summary of information about all items, and it is used when user needs brief information on many items. The turnaround document outputs that turnaround and becomes input. Like turnaround document is generated when the output of one activity or process is going to be used as input in some other. So that turnaround document is generated when a user, often a customer, needs to return an output to be processed. The graphs are charts used in addition to and instead of tables and numbers when your user needs to capture data among several items. So at that time you can use graphs. So these are different types of reports and you can use them to generate output as per the need. The graph can be biased or unbiased. So if you see the graph below B1, this is A, this is B. So the below mentioned graph is a biased graph because you are starting on y-axis, you are starting the scale from 90. Okay, and it goes up to 120. So this is the biased one. And this is the unbiased one because it is starting the scale from 0 and it is showing the results in this way. The results are same, but here you started it from 90 and here you are starting it from 0. So this is the unbiased graph with the scale starting at 0. So you can to generate output you can be biased and unbiased, but it is recommended that not to be biased. Give all the information unbiasedly as accurately as possible. Now this is the summary. We have studied about user interfaces, that it should be designed to make the user work easier and more effective. The principles for good interface design include concern for content and context for navigation through activities. There's some static considerations which you should keep in mind. Assistance for novices should be provided and assistance for expert users, and some shortcuts for expert users should also be provided. It should be consistent and it should minimize user effort. The design process focuses on user actions, diagramming the structure, setting up the standards and a template, and then evaluating the interface design. The fundamental goal of navigation design is to make the system as simple to use as possible. The input mechanism is used to simply and easily capture accurate information without any error, and after validation, the output mechanism is used to provide accurate information according to the requirement without information overload and bias. Okay, so these are the things, all things about your user interface design, that how you should design your user interface in the appropriate way. So the lecture ends over here. This was the last slide. This is a weird message. So now I'm going to stop here, and I'm turning my microphone off. If you have any question, you just raise hand. If you have any question about this lecture or the lecture before, about anything else, you can just raise hand or type in the text panel. I will answer you over there or allow you to enter it through mic. Thank you very much, students. Thank you. Thanks a lot.